It was yellow. Not pastel or cheerful, just yellow. Folded once, sitting on the coffee table like it had been waiting all day to ruin me. My name was written on the outside in her handwriting. The same handwriting she used on birthday cards. The same loops in the R that always tilted left. But the moment I opened it, I knew the note wasn't for me. It said, "Ruben thinks I'm out with Grace tonight. If he finds out, I'll tell him it's his fault. He's soft. He'll believe anything." I don't know how long I stared at it. 10 seconds? 10 minutes? My hand kept shaking like my body knew the truth before my brain would allow it in. That stupid yellow paper, she left it like a receipt for betrayal. She wasn't out with Grace. Grace was in Michigan, and I wasn't even supposed to see the note. She probably meant to slip it into her purse, or maybe it was for him. Whoever he is, maybe she wrote it to feel bold. Maybe it was part of some game. But now it was in my hand, and I wasn't blinking. My body moved without permission. I opened her drawer, the one I wasn't supposed to open, and found more. A second note. Torn journal pages. Receipts. One from a hotel an hour from here. 3 Thursdays ago. I remember because that was the night she said her cousin's baby had the flu. I think I sat on the floor for over 2 hours. Not crying. Not even breathing properly. Just existing. The cat kept pawing at the back door like it was my job to fix the weather or something. I felt small. Like a piece of background furniture in my own life. At 11:17 p.m., the garage door opened. I shoved everything back as fast as I could and sat on the couch like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just been gutted and left there, bleeding on the inside. She walked in, humming. She kissed my head. "You're still up?" I nodded. Couldn't sleep. She smelled like mint and something floral. Not Grace's house. She told me she was tired. Told me she needed to shower. Told me she was so glad to have a husband who trusts her. I laughed. Actually laughed. And when she closed the bathroom door, I picked up the yellow note again. I reread it 5 times. And then I didn't sleep for the next 48 hours. I haven't confronted her. Not yet. I'm not strong like the people in those movies who pack a bag and slam the door. I'm not even loud enough to make her flinch. I just sit and wonder how long I've been the only one who didn't know. The next morning, I didn't eat. I made toast, stared at it until the butter hardened, then threw it away and said I wasn't hungry. She didn't notice. She was on her phone, swiping, smiling, sipping her lemon tea like nothing in the world could touch her. I remember watching her lips press against the cup and thinking, those are the same lips that kissed me last night, and probably him too. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked if she wanted me to drive her to her dentist appointment. She looked surprised, then shrugged. "Sure, if you want." I didn't want to. I just couldn't let her out of my sight. At the clinic, I sat in the car while she went inside. But she didn't go to the front desk. I watched through the windshield as she pulled out her phone and started pacing near the vending machine. Not a word to the receptionist. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. She was laughing into the phone, looking over her shoulder every few seconds like she knew someone might be watching. She wasn't there for dental work. I knew it before I even checked. I drove away. Parked at the next gas station. Sat there for half an hour, palms sweating, heart jackhammering in my chest. Then I called the clinic from a blocked number. They said no one named Francine had an appointment that day. Or this week. When I picked her up, she slid into the passenger seat and said, "That was the fastest cleaning I've ever had. I think Dr. Cole finally figured out how to schedule properly." I smiled. Nodded. Said nothing. I think I muttered something about traffic. She complained about fluoride and asked what we were doing for dinner. My mouth was dry the whole way home. Later that night, I waited until she fell asleep. Then I tiptoed downstairs and pulled out her backup phone from the kitchen drawer. The one she used to play word puzzles on. She never used it for texting, or so I thought. But it had a SIM card. It also had a backup WhatsApp account. It was there, in that phone, in that casual little app, behind the fake Sudoku games and her saved recipes, that I found everything. Photos. Dozens of them. Some from hotel rooms. Some from parking lots. Some selfies in a car I didn't recognize, always with that same man. He wasn't young. He had gray in his beard and wore collared shirts like he sold life insurance. They looked happy. Careless. Wild. There were messages too. Pages of them. Her calling me the ghost because I fade into furniture. Her laughing about how I asked if she needed gas money like some retired uncle. Her calling our home the soft cage. She even joked about how she might fake a therapist's note to get out of our marriage without looking like the bad guy. And him, this man, he was encouraging it, telling her how she deserved more, how she was meant to shine, how she was wasting her beauty on routine. They even had a running joke about how I probably ironed my pajamas. I don't. I barely fold them. I don't know how I stayed quiet. I don't know how I put the phone back, brushed my teeth next to her an hour later, and crawled into bed without screaming into a pillow. But I did, because I needed to know how far she was willing to take this. I needed to see who she really was when she thought I was just background noise. So I made a decision. I was going to watch her. Closely. Quietly. Without giving her even the faintest hint that I knew anything. I wanted her to feel safe, like I was still the soft ghost who folded laundry and said sorry when she dropped things. Because if she truly thought I was that blind, then maybe she'd show me everything. And oh, she did. She told me she'd be out of town from Friday evening through Sunday night. Her Aunt Muriel, she claimed, had just had knee surgery and needed help around the house. I acted concerned, asked if I should send flowers. She kissed me on the cheek, said, "You're too sweet," and left wearing yoga pants, no makeup, and a duffel bag slung over her shoulder like she was headed to a wellness retreat. But the thing is, Aunt Muriel lives in Arizona, and Francine wasn't flying anywhere. I knew because I'd already checked her texts and deleted calls from that burner phone she thought I didn't know existed. I'd done my research. I knew the real plan involved a 2-night reservation at a boutique hotel an hour south of us, a place with fairy lights around the windows and a reputation for discretion. So, after she left, I waited exactly 12 minutes. I grabbed the overnight bag I'd packed days earlier, locked the door behind me, and followed at a safe distance. I took back roads. I didn't even use my headlights for stretches. My heart was a sledgehammer in my chest. I'd never done anything like this before. I was the kind of guy who apologized to the drive-through speaker when I misspoke. But this was different. I wasn't spying out of curiosity. I was documenting the collapse of my life. She didn't even look behind her. She drove straight to the hotel, parked in the back lot, and strolled in like she was the queen of a castle no one would ever question. I stayed 2 cars behind, waited until she was inside, watched the man arrive 4 minutes later in a slate gray truck. Tall, older, same guy from the photos. He walked with a weird confidence, like he knew the staff wouldn't dare ask questions. They went to the front desk together. She put her hand on his back. I took a blurry picture from the dashboard. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. Room 214. I know because I checked in under a fake name using cash and told the desk clerk I wanted a room with a view, which turned out to be the 2nd floor just down the hall from them. When I heard the door click shut down the hallway, something in me turned cold. Numb. Mechanical. I walked to their door 20 minutes later, pretended to be fumbling with my key card in the room next to theirs, and slid a tiny audio recorder under the crack at the bottom of the frame. I didn't listen live. I couldn't. I just left it there, went back to my room, and stared at the ceiling for hours while the guilt chewed at my insides like rust. At 1:24 a.m., I retrieved the recorder and left. Back home, I sat in the garage with my laptop and played it. It started innocent. Wine being poured. Laughter. Jokes about how boring men don't ask questions. Then voices blurred into mumbling, into quiet rustling, into things I won't describe here. Not because they were graphic, but because they were worse than that. They were intimate. Familiar. Like they'd done it a dozen times before and had private codes for everything. At one point, I heard her laugh and say, "He still thinks I'm helping Aunt Muriel hobble around her living room. Poor guy probably microwaved soup and fell asleep with the cat." I didn't fall asleep. I listened until the sun came up. The next day, when she returned, she brought me cookies from a little bakery near Muriel's place. Chocolate chip. My favorite. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "You held the fort down, huh?" I nodded. I said, "Of course. Always." And she smiled, like she had no idea her lie was dissolving under her own lipstick. That was the moment I knew something had changed in me. Not like in movies, where the guy suddenly becomes strong or brave. No, nothing like that. I just got quiet. Dangerous quiet. I started collecting. Not evidence for divorce. Evidence for understanding. I needed to know, who was I really married to? Because the woman smiling in my kitchen was not the same person I'd fallen in love with. That woman was long gone. And what I found next, on her tablet, in a folder buried inside a meditation app, wasn't just disturbing. It was planned. To the letter. I never wanted to be the kind of husband who checked his wife's devices. Honestly, I used to roll my eyes at people who did that. I thought it meant you didn't trust your partner. And what was the point of marriage without trust? But it's funny how quickly your sense of morality bends when your gut's been screaming for weeks and the woman sleeping beside you is smiling in her sleep because of someone else. It was the following Wednesday. Francine was in the shower. I'd just come back from pretending to jog around the block, not for health, but because I needed time to cry without doing it in front of Pickles, our cat. She gets anxious when I cry, starts howling. When I came back, I noticed her tablet sitting on the nightstand, screen still lit. She usually locked it, but I guess she was in a hurry. She'd left it open on a meditation app she'd downloaded a year ago but rarely used. I clicked it. Inside, there was a little folder labeled Routine. I figured it'd be full of breathing techniques or sleepy nature sounds. Instead, it held a single document. One file, named Phase 2. My hands turned to ice. I tapped it open, and there it was. A list, but not just any list. This wasn't about errands or travel. This was methodical, cold, numbered, entitled, How to Transition Out Without Drama or Guilt. That's the moment I realized I wasn't losing Francine by accident. She was removing me on purpose. Here's just some of what I read, word for word. Minimize physical affection 2 months prior to avoid emotional confusion. Drop small hints about unhappiness. Frame it as personal growth. Begin withdrawing financially. Open private account and redirect freelance income. Document minor arguments to build narrative of incompatibility. Coordinate overlap with replacement partner discreetly. No overlap on paper. Avoid blaming him. Instead, thank him for his love and support during self-discovery. Keep exits graceful. Leave him with dignity so you maintain reputation. There were more. 9 steps in total. And her handwriting wasn't just on the screen. It was in the margins too. Little scribbles like heavy checkmark number 3 done and mention number 2 again soon. Use dinner convo. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a phase. A wall she was climbing over. I sat there, staring at the list while the sound of the shower filled the hallway like white noise to a funeral. My legs wouldn't move. My mouth stayed open like I was waiting for the part where I woke up. But that didn't happen. When she finally came out, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping down her shoulders, she smiled at me and said, I'm craving Thai tonight. Pad CEW. I nodded. Said, sure, sounds good. Inside, I was shattering. But outside, I looked calm. And from that moment on, something inside me flipped. Not into rage. I'm not built like that. I just became hollow. Focused. Quietly obsessed with understanding the why behind the how. If she was executing this breakup like a project plan, then I needed to know what phase 3 looked like before she got there first. So I started mirroring her. I began playing dumb, letting her think I hadn't noticed the missing cash in our joint savings. Letting her assume I believed the phone charger she found in her purse wasn't a second line. I even started initiating awkward dinners again, just to see how far she'd go pretending we were okay. And she did. She played along. She smiled. She clinked glasses. She called me babe, not like it meant something, but like it was a decoy word keeping me sedated while the poison worked through my system. Then one night, she made a mistake. A big one. She fell asleep on the couch with her phone still unlocked in her hand. And what I found in her messages that night was enough to finally break the dam. Because it wasn't just an affair. It was a partnership. And I wasn't the only husband she'd helped someone escape. There's this moment when you read something so vile, so off the rails disturbing, that your brain doesn't register it as real. It feels more like dialogue from a show, or someone playing a dark prank. That's exactly what it felt like as I stood there at 2:13 in the morning, reading the group chat Francine forgot to close before falling asleep with her phone unlocked, screen down, barely hidden beneath the blanket. I didn't mean to snoop. Honestly, I was just going to tuck her phone into the charger like I always do, part of the little rituals I still clung to, even when my heart knew better. But when I picked it up, it buzzed. The screen lit up, and what I saw made my stomach twist into something I don't have a word for. A new message from someone named Tamsin. I'd never heard of her before. But the preview line on the lock screen said, God, I wish I had your courage. I'm so close to phase 2, I can taste it. I sat down on the carpet like my knees had just given out. And with shaking hands, I opened the chat. It was a group message thread titled Red Silk Club. There were 5 women in it, including Francine. And they weren't just talking about affairs. They were strategizing about leaving their husbands. Not like support group stuff, not the "he never listens" or "I feel stuck" kind of venting. No, these women were building templates, timelines, sharing fake therapist notes, bank account loopholes, and breakup scripts designed to make their exits look noble. One woman even posted a Google Doc titled Disengagement Language for Empaths. I scrolled back weeks, then months. Francine had been the most active member. She offered advice like a seasoned veteran. She helped one woman in Colorado draft a farewell letter that blamed emotional neglect while hiding a year-long affair with her yoga instructor. Another woman from New York, Janice, was hiding pregnancy test results from both her husband and her affair partner. Francine told her, "If you're not sure who the dad is, delay. Turn the doubt into empowerment." I remember reading that sentence 5 times. It felt like a sickness was blooming in my throat. And then I saw my name. Not directly, but it was obviously me. Francine had written, "He still sets reminders to refill my tea when I'm on my period. He leaves sticky notes in the bathroom mirror that say, 'You matter.' Sweet, broken man. He deserves better. But I'm done raising soft men. Done raising." She made me sound like a charity project, like I was some pet she adopted and outgrew. And the others replied with heart emojis, laughing gifs, and one woman saying, "You're evolving. He's stalling." That's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating. This was about cleansing. These women had made betrayal feel righteous. They convinced themselves that manipulating their way out of marriages, with lies, with affairs, with cold-blooded cruelty was some sort of spiritual awakening. And Francine? She was the ringleader. I backed away from her phone like it was radioactive. My hands were sweaty. My mouth tasted like metal. I actually looked at her sleeping on the couch, one arm flopped over the side, hair tangled, lips slightly parted, and for a second, I thought, how do you look so peaceful while dismantling people like this? I wanted to wake her up. I wanted to scream, to throw her own phone at her and demand to know how long she'd been rehearsing my destruction like a monologue. But I didn't. Instead, I tiptoed into the kitchen, sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the dishwasher, and just breathed. Slowly, quietly. Like if I made too much noise, the truth would snap in half and fall on me. Because now it wasn't just about me being cheated on. Now I was married to someone who built a digital cult around destroying people like me, people who gave too much, loved too earnestly, forgave too quickly. And I wasn't just going to walk away from that. I was going to learn everything. Because now I needed to know how far she was willing to go. And the next day, I found something she never meant for me to see. A manila envelope under her seat in the car. Sealed. Marked only with my name. Inside that envelope was the real end of the story. And what I read inside changed the way I saw my entire marriage. I found the envelope by accident. Isn't that always how it happens? You go to clean something mundane, in this case, the weird sticky spot under the passenger seat, and instead, you reach under and pull out a sealed manila envelope with your name written in black ink on the front. Just your first name. No to. No love. No signature. Just Ruben. I sat there in the garage, the doors still open, wind rattling the recycling bin outside, with this stupid envelope in my hands like it was some ancient scroll waiting to rewrite my life. Part of me didn't want to open it. I knew that whatever was inside wouldn't help me sleep better at night. But curiosity is cruel. It doesn't care if you're emotionally equipped. It doesn't even wait for logic. So I peeled it open. Inside were 6 folded pages, printed, not handwritten. That felt important. Like she didn't want any of this tied to her handwriting in case it ended up somewhere it shouldn't. Each page had a header, contingency. Beneath that, numbered bullet points. It wasn't a letter. It was a backup plan. A carefully outlined list of things she would do, say, and frame if I ever found out. It read like a post-crime playbook. I couldn't believe what I was reading. If confronted, remain calm. Cry if needed. Say, I didn't know how to ask for help. Blame emotional starvation. Mention years of being invisible. Use phrases like, I felt like a ghost. Deny overlap with current partner. If Ruben brings up timeline, insist he's remembering things wrong. Stay firm. Activate backup narrative. Reference that time he forgot anniversary dinner in 2020. Emotional betrayal, physical betrayal. Frame the exit as liberation, not abandonment. Say, I needed to find myself before I disappeared completely. Offer him a clean break. Keep assets split generously to reduce guilt. She had planned out my reactions before I ever had them. I felt like I was reading the instruction manual for how to erase me without looking like the villain. She'd even pre-written excuses and conversation prompts. There was one line, typed in bold, that read, "Do not let him spiral into self-hate. He needs to believe you cared." It hit me like a shovel to the chest. I'd spent weeks, months, second-guessing my instincts, blaming myself for not being exciting enough, ambitious enough, masculine enough. And the whole time, she had this emotional fire escape mapped out. Like a get-out-of-guilt-free card she could pull if I ever started to drown. She didn't love me. She pitied me. And worse, she needed to manage me. Like I was some emotional liability she didn't want leaking all over her new life. I don't even remember walking back inside the house. I just remember standing in the hallway, the envelope crushed in my hand, the taste of metal rising in my throat. She was in the kitchen on a video call, laughing with someone. I couldn't tell who. Her voice sounded young again, like the version of her I hadn't heard in years. Light, flirtatious, effortless. I watched her from the hallway like a stranger might, observing the ease of someone who wasn't carrying guilt because they'd already placed it elsewhere. She glanced at me once, smiled, mouthed hey, and went back to her call. I didn't respond. Later that night, I went to the basement. Not for anything dramatic. I just needed to be away from her, from light, from the smell of her shampoo lingering in the sheets. I sat on the old futon we never threw out, and I laid the 6 pages in front of me, reading them over and over like they might suddenly make sense if I tilted my head enough. But there was one thing I hadn't noticed until then. A watermark, barely visible on the bottom of each page. It was faint, like it had been printed on special paper. It said, redzillproject.org beta access. I froze. I grabbed my laptop and typed it into the browser. The site was locked. Password protected. No homepage. No contact info. Just a login field and a logo, a red silk knot, twisted into the shape of a heart. I stared at it for 10 minutes, unmoving. This wasn't just a group chat anymore. This was organized, branded, and Francine was involved deeper than I ever imagined. Tomorrow, I'll do what I've never done before. I'll confront someone. But not her. Not yet. I'll start with Grace. Because according to Francine's own phone records, she's not just a friend. She's part of it. Grace always seemed harmless to me. She had that permanently amused expression, like she was constantly listening to a joke only she could hear. She was one of Francine's oldest friends. They met in college, shared dorm furniture and eyeliner, and apparently, secrets I was never supposed to touch. When I called and asked if we could meet for coffee, she didn't even hesitate. She chirped sure, like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't been unraveling the script of my own erasure for weeks. I chose a place far enough from town that Francine wouldn't casually show up, an old bakery with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu where the S's looked like backward Z's. I got there early, ordered peppermint tea I didn't want, waited. She walked in wearing red, a blouse the exact shade of the logo from the Red Silk Project site. My stomach clenched the moment I saw it, and even though I told myself it was a coincidence, I knew better. She sat down across from me, dropped her purse with a thud, and smiled. "You look like someone who just realized the house he lives in isn't his." It wasn't a greeting. It was a challenge. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I just leaned forward and asked quietly, "What's red silk?" She blinked once, slowly, then laughed. Not a cackle, not maniacal, just this light, almost delighted sound, like I'd finally solved a riddle she'd been dying for me to guess. "Wow," she said, tilting her head. "So Francine left breadcrumbs after all. Or did you go looking for them?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence told her everything. Grace stirred her coffee. No sugar, no cream, then looked me straight in the eye. "It started as a book club," she said. "Like all dangerous things do. Just a bunch of women venting about their husbands. Harmless at first. But then someone mentioned patterns, predictable male behavior, emotional neglect, power dynamics. And it shifted. I tried not to let my hands shake. Shifted how?" She smiled. "It became a space where we asked what might happen if we stopped waiting to be the ones left. What if we left first? What if we built templates, not just for exit, but for transformation? Not fleeing, evolving." I whispered, "Evolving into what?" She leaned in, her voice lowering to something almost conspiratorial. "Into women who weren't afraid of the cleanup. who didn't feel guilty for outgrowing men who never saw them, who knew how to make their exits look poetic, not cruel. I swallowed. And Francine? She was a prodigy, Grace said. She took to it faster than anyone I've seen. She turned guilt into structure. She was the one who coined the phrase emotional efficiency. You were her final project. Those words felt like acid down my spine. She said I was soft. I muttered. That I'd believe anything. Grace didn't flinch. You're not soft. You're human. That's what she doesn't get. She thinks love is inefficient. That compassion slows her down. She doesn't know what to do with someone who doesn't push back. So she scripts your reactions, just to feel control. I blinked hard. So what now? I just accept that I was a case study in some emotional self-help cult. Grace looked almost sad. No, Ruben. You write the ending. That's what Francine never accounts for. Men who stay quiet long enough to see everything, and then do something she didn't predict. I left the coffee shop in a haze. Grace didn't try to follow. She just sipped her bitter coffee like she'd seen this all play out before. Maybe she had. Back at home, I found Francine in the living room, humming while folding laundry. Folding my shirts. As if nothing was out of place. As if we were still us. And that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to leave something behind. A note, like hers, but heavier. A truth she couldn't bury under grace or emotional growth. She didn't notice anything strange when she came home that night. The lights were dimmed just like she liked them. Music was playing, that soft, indie folk playlist she always said made her feel intentional. Candles flickered on the mantel. Her favorite kind. The lavender vanilla ones that gave her headaches but made her feel elegant. I watched her walk in, purse slung casually over her shoulder, phone in hand, tapping away. When she looked up and saw me sitting at the kitchen table, she gave me that half-smile I'd once fallen for. But now, it looked like a customer service expression. Polite. Performed. She set her phone down, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and asked, "What's all this?" I didn't answer with words. I slid the letter across the table, a single page, handwritten, folded twice. On the front, I had written her name in block letters, Francine. She hesitated, then picked it up, and I watched her face as she read it. Every line. Francine. I know. I've known. For longer than you think. I read the messages. I found the notes. I saw the plan. And I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to beg you to stay. Instead, I want to thank you. Thank you for finally showing me the difference between love and performance. Between effort and manipulation. Between devotion and strategy. You've helped me see what I am without you. Not broken. Not soft. Just free. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. The apartment is yours. I've already transferred my half of the savings into an account under your name, not because I owe it to you, but because I don't want anything that ties me to this version of us. Keep the cat. Keep the couch. Keep the friends who told you were right to plan an escape instead of a conversation. But the story? The story's mine now. And I get to rewrite it from here. Ruben. She didn't say anything at first. Just sat there with the letter in her hands, blinking like someone had been handed a script in a language they forgot how to read. I stood up, picked up my bag, gave her one last look, not full of hate, not full of pity, just quiet clarity. The kind you earn when you walk through fire and realize you're still standing. And then I left. No shouting. No confrontation. No chaos. I drove through the night with the windows down. No destination, just motion. Just air on my face and the sound of something breaking open inside me, not my heart, but the shell it had been trapped in. Over the next few weeks, I found a small place by the lake. Nothing fancy. Just silence and space. I started running. Not away from anything, but towards something I hadn't touched in years. Peace. I started writing again. Not sad poems, but letters to myself. Forgiving letters. Honest letters. The kind of things no one teaches men like me to say. I also met people. Real people. The kind who speak in full truths, not curated versions of themselves. I made coffee in the morning without wondering if I was being watched. I laughed. For real. Loud. With my head back and everything. As for Francine, I don't know what story she told about me when I disappeared. I'm sure it was elegant. I'm sure it made her look wise. But I don't care. Because I didn't need to stay in her story to write my own. And I'm doing okay now. Better than okay. Actually. I'm not just surviving. I'm becoming. And that's something no one, not even her, ever saw coming.